Welcome to Family Secrets Unveiled, where we dive deep into the hidden corners of human experience, unearthing tales so bizarre, so heartbreaking, they defy explanation. Today, we unravel a story that begins not with a walk down the aisle, but with a woman waking up in a wedding gown she never wore, a gown that held more secrets than threads. Imagine, if you will, the gentle awakening from a dreamless sleep, the soft light of dawn filtering through unfamiliar curtains. A quiet stillness, a peace that feels almost borrowed. And then, the sudden, jarring sensation of crisp lace, of delicate silk against bare skin. Not the comfort of a nightgown, not the familiar embrace of a lover's shirt, but something altogether grander, more ornate, and utterly, profoundly wrong. This is the labyrinthine tale of Eleanor Vance, a woman whose life, just weeks before, had been a tapestry of predictable patterns and quiet contentment. Eleanor, at 38, was an architect, her days filled with blueprints, structural integrity, and the satisfying precision of design. She lived in a charming, if slightly cluttered, brownstone in Brooklyn, a testament to her love for history and her aversion to stark modernism. Her hair, a cascade of deep auburn, often escaped its neat bun as she worked, framing a face that was both intelligent and expressive, usually animated by a thoughtful frown or a quick, genuine smile. She wasn't one for grand gestures, preferring the subtle eloquence of a well-placed beam or the quiet joy of a perfectly crafted archway. Her life was orderly, a testament to her meticulous nature. She dated, occasionally, but had never found that elusive spark, that sense of destiny that romantic comedies promised. Marriage, for Eleanor, was a concept she respected but hadn't actively pursued. It was an idea, a distant shore, not an imminent voyage. Yet, here she was. The sensation of the dress was immediate, a tactile assault on her senses. The heavy satin bodice cinched unnaturally tight, restricting her breath. The intricate beadwork, cool and metallic against her skin. The layers of tulle and organza fanning out around her like a ghostly cloud. It was undeniably a wedding gown, pristine and magnificent, a garment designed for a monumental occasion. But whose occasion? And more importantly, whose gown? Her eyes fluttered open, initially refusing to focus, as if her mind was trying to protect her from the surreal reality. When they finally did, she was met not with the familiar cream walls of her bedroom, but with muted tones of silver and dove gray. The furniture was elegant, antique, certainly not hers. A vast four-poster bed, draped in rich velvet, stood opposite a dressing table adorned with ornate silver brushes and crystal perfume bottles. A marble fireplace, cold and unlit, dominated one wall. This was a room of quiet opulence, a room that whispered of old money and forgotten histories. Panic, cold and sharp, began to prickle at the edges of her consciousness. Her breath hitched. She tried to move, but the sheer weight of the gown, coupled with an unfamiliar stiffness in her limbs, made it difficult. It felt as though she was encased in a delicate, yet immensely heavy cocoon. Her mind raced, searching for an explanation, for a fragment of memory that could piece together this impossible puzzle. Had she been sleepwalking? Was this some elaborate prank by friends? But her friends, while occasionally mischievous, were not cruel. And none of them would possess a dress of this caliber or a room this grand. The silence of the house was profound, broken only by the faint chirping of birds outside and the frantic beat of her own heart. A sense of profound disorientation washed over her, a feeling of being untethered from her own reality. She didn't recognize anything, not the room, not the dress, not even the faint scent of lilies that hung in the air. She tried to recall the night before. A typical Tuesday. She had worked late on a challenging project, ordered takeout from her favorite Thai place, and watched a documentary about ancient Roman aqueducts. No parties, no strange encounters, no sudden flights of fancy. Her last conscious memory was drifting off to sleep in her own bed, amidst the comforting clutter of her books and sketches. This was a complete rupture, a tear in the fabric of her life. The cold reality of the situation began to sink in, a chilling dread that settled deep in her bones. She wasn't just in an unfamiliar room, she was in an unfamiliar life. And the wedding gown, pristine and unforgiving, was the stark, undeniable proof of it. Who was she supposed to marry? Where was the groom? Why was she alone? The questions swirled, a dizzying vortex in her mind. A small, ornate clock on the bedside table chimed softly, its delicate melody doing little to soothe her frayed nerves. It read 7:15 a.m. A brand new day, but one that felt ancient, burdened with an unspoken history. She noticed a glint of metal on her left hand. A ring. A heavy, intricate silver band, unfamiliar and alien. It was too big, slipping slightly on her finger, but undeniably a wedding band. Her breath hitched again. This wasn't a dream. This was terrifyingly real. A deep, unsettling fear began to bloom in her chest, a fear far more profound than simple confusion. This wasn't just a misplaced night, it was a stolen life. And the gown, a symbol of joy and new beginnings, now felt like a shroud, a beautiful prison. The mystery deepened with every passing second, pulling her further into an abyss of the unknown. Who had done this? And why? The answers, she instinctively knew, would be far darker than she could ever imagine. The quiet elegance of the room suddenly felt sinister, its beauty a veneer over something deeply unsettling. The game, it seemed, had already begun, and Eleanor Vance was unwittingly its central, bewildered player. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating, until Eleanor finally mustered the strength to throw back the heavy silk duvet. Her legs, still stiff, touched the plush Persian rug. She looked down at the dress, truly seeing it for the first time in the harsh light of her growing panic. It was an exquisite piece, a couture creation that must have cost a fortune. The lace was chantilly, delicate as cobwebs, embroidered with tiny pearls that shimmered with an inner light. The train, a sweeping expanse of satin, flowed behind her, an opulent white river. It wasn't her style, not at all. She preferred clean lines, understated elegance. This was theatrical. A gown for a grand statement, for someone else's grand statement. She ran her hands over the fabric, feeling the cold weight of the pearls, the intricate stitching that spoke of countless hours of meticulous craftsmanship. A profound sense of violation, a chilling invasion of her personal space and identity, washed over her. She stumbled out of the bed, the train of the gown tangling around her ankles, a cumbersome, beautiful burden. Her bare feet made no sound on the thick rug as she moved towards a large, ornate mirror on the far wall. The reflection that stared back was undeniably hers, yet subtly altered. Her auburn hair, usually meticulously styled or tied back, was loose, cascading around her shoulders in soft waves, a style she rarely wore. Her eyes, usually clear and alert, were wide with a primal fear, dark circles beneath them suggesting a restless night she couldn't remember. And the dress, oh, the dress. It transformed her, making her appear taller, more ethereal, almost spectral. For a fleeting moment, she didn't recognize herself, this ghostly bride in a stranger's gown. She reached out, touching the cold glass, as if to confirm her own existence, her own reality. A small, gilt-edged card lay on the dressing table, almost hidden beneath a silver hairbrush. Her heart pounded as she reached for it, her fingers trembling. The card was heavy, expensive, with an embossed crest she didn't recognize. On it, in elegant script, were just 2 words, the wedding. Below that, a date, October 27th. And below that, a time, 2 p.m. Today, it was October 27th. And it was already past 7 a.m. A wedding. Her wedding? The thought was ludicrous, terrifying. She had no fiancé, no wedding plans, no inkling of such an event. Her mind reeled, trying to reconcile this impossible reality with her own memories. The absence of memory was the most terrifying thing of all. A gaping hole where the last hours, or days, should have been. Suddenly, a soft knock echoed from the bedroom door. Eleanor froze, her hand still clutching the card. Her breath caught in her throat. Who was it? A maid? A family member? The groom? The thought sent a fresh wave of panic through her. She couldn't face anyone, not like this, not without answers. She scrambled towards the closet, hoping to find clothes, anything that wasn't this incriminating gown. The closet was vast, filled with designer clothes she'd never seen before. Exquisite silk blouses, tailored skirts, cashmere sweaters, all in rich, muted tones. But no casual wear, no jeans, no t-shirts. And no indication of her own humble wardrobe. This was a life of privilege, of carefully curated elegance, a life utterly foreign to her. The knock came again, a little louder this time, followed by a soft, melodic voice. "Eleanor, darling, are you awake? Father wants to know if you'll be joining us for breakfast before the ceremony." The voice was smooth, cultured, but there was an undertone, a faint edge of expectation, of veiled impatience, that sent a shiver down Eleanor's spine. Darling? Father? These weren't her family. She was an only child. Her parents had passed away years ago. Who is this father? And us? Her mind raced, a desperate scramble for any familiar anchor. She pressed herself against the cold wood of the closet door, trying to make herself invisible, her heart hammering against her ribs. The name, Eleanor, was hers at least. But everything else was a stranger's script. "Eleanor? Is everything all right in there?" The voice, now closer, was accompanied by the faint jingle of keys, then the soft click of a door handle turning. Panic seized her. She couldn't let them see her like this, confused and terrified, dressed in a wedding gown she didn't recognize. Before the door could swing open, she did the only thing she could think of. She ducked behind a towering armoire, pulling the heavy velvet curtains across the recess, hoping the voluminous white fabric of the gown would blend into the shadows. Her heart pounded a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She heard the soft creak of the door, then footsteps, light and hesitant, entering the room. "Eleanor? Are you feeling unwell?" The voice was closer now, a female voice, perhaps the one who had just knocked. "The tailor arrived with your veil. He's waiting downstairs." Veil. Of course. A wedding gown wouldn't be complete without a veil. Eleanor held her breath, trying to control the frantic tremor in her hands. She heard the rustle of fabric, then a sigh. "Honestly, Eleanor, you know how Father gets. Punctuality is paramount, especially today." There was a faint sound of something being placed on the dressing table, perhaps the veil. Then, the footsteps moved away, towards the bathroom it seemed. A tap was turned on, a gentle splash of water. This person was clearly comfortable in this space, intimate with Eleanor's routine, or at least, this Eleanor's routine. Eleanor's mind was a swirling vortex of confusion and dread. This wasn't just a dream, it was a meticulously constructed nightmare. The dress, the room, the impending wedding, the unfamiliar family, it was all too real, too elaborate to be a simple hallucination. She had to escape, to find a way back to her own life, her own identity. But how? She was trapped, a stranger in a stolen skin, on the verge of marrying a man she didn't know, into a family she didn't belong to. The horror of it all began to crystallize, sharp and painful. This was no prank. This was something far more sinister. And as the sound of the running water stopped, and the footsteps began to approach the bedroom again, Eleanor knew she was running out of time. The door to her old life was rapidly closing, perhaps already sealed shut, and the path forward was shrouded in a terrifying, impenetrable fog. Eleanor crouched behind the armoire, her heart a frantic drum against her ribs, listening to the soft footsteps approach the bathroom. She heard the click of a light switch, the gentle gurgle of water, and then a faint, almost imperceptible humming. The woman was singing softly, a lullaby, an old, forgotten tune that somehow twisted the knife of Eleanor's disorientation even further. It was a melody Eleanor felt she should know, a ghost of a memory teasing her from the depths of her subconscious. It was unsettling, this intimacy with a stranger. This woman knew the house, knew the routines, and she clearly knew Eleanor. But this, Eleanor, was not her. As the humming continued, Eleanor cautiously peeked from behind the curtains. The bathroom door was ajar. Through the narrow gap, she could see a sliver of the woman's profile in the mirror, elegant, dark hair pulled back, a delicate silver necklace glinting at her throat. She looked to be in her late 40s, perhaps early 50s, with an air of refined composure. The kind of woman who managed a grand household with effortless grace. Not a threat, perhaps, but certainly an obstacle. Eleanor knew this was her chance. She had to find a way out, to escape this gilded cage before the ceremony began. With painstaking slowness, she pushed herself up, the heavy fabric of the gown rustling softly. She held her breath, every muscle tense, listening intently for any change in the bathroom. The humming continued, a soothing, almost hypnotic sound. Tiptoeing across the thick rug, Eleanor made her way to the bedroom door, her hands shaking as she reached for the ornate brass knob. It turned silently. A small victory. She eased the door open, just a crack, and peered out into a dimly lit hallway. It was lined with dark wood paneling and portraits of stern-faced ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. The silence of the house pressed in, amplifying every beat of her heart, every rustle of the gown. She slipped out, closing the door as gently as possible. The hallway stretched before her, a silent, imposing corridor. She had no idea which way to go. Downstairs to the unknown father and the waiting guests? Or deeper into the house, searching for an exit for answers? Instinct screaming, she chose the latter. She moved cautiously, the train of the gown sweeping silently across the polished wooden floors. Every shadow seemed to lengthen, every creak of the floorboards under her feet sounded like thunder in the oppressive quiet. She passed several closed doors, each one a potential trap or a clue. Finally, she came to a slightly open door at the end of the hall. A faint sliver of light emanated from within. Curiosity, overriding caution, drew her closer. She pushed the door open just enough to peer inside. It was a study, dark and masculine, filled with leather-bound books, antique globes, and the rich scent of old paper and pipe tobacco. A large mahogany desk dominated the room, and on it, illuminated by a single, green-shaded lamp, was a framed photograph. Eleanor's breath hitched. It was a wedding photograph. But not just any wedding photograph. It was her in the photograph, smiling radiantly, dressed in a shimmering white gown. And beside her, arm around her waist, was a man she had never seen before, tall, distinguished, with kind eyes and a reassuring smile. He was older, perhaps in his late 50s, his silver hair impeccably combed. They looked genuinely happy, a picture of marital bliss. But she had no memory of this man or this wedding. And the dress in the photograph, it wasn't the gown she was wearing now. This one was simpler, more elegant, more her. Confusion warred with a growing sense of dread. If this was her wedding, then who is the man in the photograph? And why was she about to marry someone else, in a different dress today? Her eyes scanned the desk, desperate for more clues. Beneath the photograph, tucked into a leather blotter, she saw a stack of official-looking documents. Her heart pounded as she pulled them out. Marriage certificates. Several of them. All bearing her name, Eleanor Vance. And each one, dated years apart, listed a different groom. A cold, nauseating realization began to dawn on her. The first certificate, dated 15 years ago, was with the man in the photograph, Arthur Thorne. The second, 5 years later, with a man named Marcus Holloway. The third, just 2 years ago, with a man named Julian Blackwood. And the latest, with today's date, was for a wedding with a man named Alaric Sterling. Eleanor felt a scream building in her throat, strangled by the sheer impossibility of it all. She had no memory of any of these men, no memory of any of these weddings. Yet, here was undeniable proof, official documents, signed with her name. She had lived multiple lives, married multiple men, and forgotten every single one. A chilling thought pierced through her panic. Amnesia. But not just amnesia. Selective amnesia, perhaps. Or something far more sinister. Was she being controlled? Hypnotized? Or was she a prisoner in a horrific, elaborate game? The wedding gown she wore suddenly felt heavy, suffocating, not a symbol of celebration, but a ceremonial garment for a recurring nightmare. The gentle humming from the bathroom had stopped. The house was utterly silent again, a silence that felt heavy with unspoken truths. Just then, She heard footsteps approaching the study. Quick, decisive footsteps. Not the gentle tread of the woman from the bathroom. These were heavier, more authoritative. Panic flared, raw and blinding. She jammed the marriage certificates back into the blotter, pushed the door shut, and scrambled back down the hall, desperate to return to the relative safety of the bedroom. But it was too late. As she reached the bedroom door, she heard a voice, deep and resonant, from the study behind her. "Eleanor? I thought you'd be in the library, preparing yourself for the day." The voice was calm, almost soothing, yet it held an undeniable undercurrent of authority, of ownership. Eleanor froze, her hand on the doorknob. She slowly turned. Standing in the doorway of the study, a tall, imposing man in a perfectly tailored suit, was the father she had heard about. His eyes, the same kind eyes as the man in the first wedding photograph, were fixed on her, but there was a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in their gaze. A glint of something cold, something calculating, that sent a shiver of pure terror down her spine. The true depth of the nightmare was just beginning to unfold. The man, this father, was indeed a striking figure. His silver hair, though impeccably styled, framed a face etched with lines of authority and, perhaps, a hint of sorrow that seemed out of place with his imposing demeanor. His eyes, an unusual shade of steely blue, held a piercing intensity that seemed to see right through Eleanor, beyond her confusion, straight into the raw nerve of her terror. He stepped into the hallway, his presence filling the space, making the already stifling air even heavier. Eleanor found herself unable to speak, her voice trapped somewhere deep in her throat, choked by fear. He approached her slowly, his gaze never leaving hers. "There you are, my dear. We were just wondering where you had gotten to." His voice was smooth, a low baritone, each word measured and precise. "Such a momentous day, and yet you seem distracted." He paused, a faint, unsettling smile playing on his lips. "The gown suits you, by the way. A magnificent choice. Not quite the same as the one for Arthur, or Marcus, or even poor Julian, but each bride deserves her unique expression, wouldn't you agree?" Eleanor's blood ran cold. He knew. He knew about the other weddings, the other men. The chilling implication was undeniable. He wasn't just aware of her amnesia, he was intrinsically involved in it. Who are you?" she finally managed to whisper, her voice a raw, fragile sound. "And why am I here? I don't remember any of this." "Any of them?" A soft, melancholic sigh escaped him. "My dear Eleanor, you're exactly where you are meant to be. And I am your guardian, your protector, your devoted father-in-law, in a manner of speaking." He gestured around the opulent hallway. "This has been your home, our home, for many years now. And the men, they were all deeply in love with you. Just as Alaric is today." He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. "You see, my darling, you have a very special gift. A rare beauty, a captivating spirit, and a remarkable ability to adapt." He then began to weave a tale so bizarre, so cruel, it bordered on madness. He explained, in the same calm, measured tone, that Eleanor possessed a unique neurological condition, one that caused her to lose all memory of her life and identity whenever she experienced profound emotional trauma or a significant life event. "A blank slate, as it were," he said, almost fondly. "And when Arthur, my son, your first husband, passed away tragically, we discovered this reset. It was devastating, of course, for us. But then, a thought occurred to me. A way to preserve your beauty, your charm, your pure spirit, forever unstained by grief or regret. A way to have you, always, at the peak of your happiness." He confessed to manipulating her, to orchestrating these weddings, each time with a new, wealthy, and often ailing man from his powerful social circle. Each time, after the honeymoon phase, he would ensure a tragic accident befell the groom, triggering Eleanor's memory loss and preparing her for the next arranged marriage. The goal, he calmly stated, was to keep Eleanor eternally young, eternally vibrant, always the radiant bride, untainted by the realities of aging, loss, or the mundane wear and tear of a long-term relationship. She was his masterpiece, his living doll, forever trapped in a cycle of manufactured joy and orchestrated heartbreak. He saw her not as a person, but as a perfect, perpetual bride, a symbol of eternal, untarnished beauty. And Alaric, he concluded, his smile returning, a chillingly benevolent expression, is particularly devoted. And, I might add, quite wealthy. He adores you, Eleanor. Just as all the others did. And after today, you will adore him too. For a time. He extended a hand, a gesture of almost paternal reassurance. Now, shall we proceed? The guests are waiting. And the veil needs to be placed. Eleanor stared at him, the horrifying truth settling over her like a suffocating blanket. She wasn't a victim of circumstance. She was a meticulously crafted prisoner, her life a repeating reel of joy, loss, and enforced forgetting. The wedding gown, once a symbol of confusion, now felt like a uniform for her eternal captivity. A profound sense of despair, a soul-crushing realization of her utter powerlessness, washed over her. There was no escape. Not from him, not from this house, and certainly not from the cruel mechanism of her own mind. Yet, as her eyes met his, something flickered within her. A tiny spark. A refusal. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about reclaiming herself, even if just for a fleeting moment. She wasn't just a beautiful blank slate. She was Eleanor Vance, the architect, the woman who loved history and precision. And she would not be his perfect bride. Not again. No, she said, her voice surprisingly strong, though laced with a tremor. I won't. The father's smile faltered. His eyes hardened. Eleanor, you will. You always do. He took a step closer, his hand reaching for her arm. But Eleanor, fueled by a surge of desperate defiance, stumbled backward, her hand accidentally brushing against the heavy, ornate silver picture frame on a nearby console table. The frame, unbalanced, tipped. The glass shattered. A sharp, piercing sound that cut through the silence and seemed to shatter something within Eleanor's own mind. A vivid, agonizing memory, a flash of something she hadn't known was hidden, surged to the forefront. A memory of a brutal car crash, a sudden impact, a searing pain, and a man's face, the face of Arthur Thorne, her real first husband, screaming her name before everything went black. A gasp escaped her. The father stared, his face suddenly pale, his composure cracking. This was not part of his plan. Eleanor, overwhelmed by the sudden, traumatic recall, stumbled again, clutching her head. But this time, it wasn't confusion. It was anger. Raw, blinding anger. The pain was real, the memory was real. And the true horror of her stolen life, the countless manipulated cycles, crashed down upon her with overwhelming force. The story of Eleanor Vance, the woman who woke up in a wedding gown she never wore, ultimately concludes not with a simple escape, but with the terrifying awakening of her own mind. Whether she manages to physically break free from the opulent prison, or if her newfound awareness merely condemns her to a more agonizing form of captivity, remains a chilling question. What is certain is that the veil of forgetfulness has been torn, and Eleanor is no longer an unwitting participant. She is now a woman haunted by her pasts, trapped in a present she despises, and facing a future shrouded in uncertainty and danger. The beauty of the gown, the elegance of the house, the charm of the father, all are revealed as mere facades for a chilling, meticulously crafted nightmare. It leaves us with the unsettling thought: what happens when the perfect illusion shatters and the perfect bride remembers everything? Thank you for joining us on this unsettling journey into the depths of deception and stolen identity. If Eleanor's story has captivated you, if it has sent shivers down your spine and left you pondering the fragile nature of memory and reality, then please show your support. Like this video, subscribe to Family Secrets Unveiled for more tales that challenge what you think you know, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the extraordinary and the terrifying. Until next time, keep your secrets close and question everything.